I am not exaggerating when I say Yorozu actually just broke the power scaling system in Jujutsu Kaisen. No joke, it's just been flipped completely on its head. The feats that we're getting from Angel, Yorozu, and 15-fingered Sukuna are just phenomenal, and really it just needs to be talked about as soon as possible. Because I'm gonna be honest, I guarantee you that most of you watching right now aren't even aware of just how impressive this is right now. So honestly, strap in because this is gonna be very interesting. And of course, if you haven't, do be sure to subscribe for JJK content. Trust me, you definitely are gonna want it if you're a fan of JJK. There's a lot of versus battles, what ifs, power scaling videos, and also a lot of live streams, so live reviews, reactions, and discussion. And hey, leave a like too, it really helps out. Thank you. And lastly, thanks to that guy Trey for being the only special grade member of the channel. Thank you, man. Alright, now to start off with just how strong is Yorozu. Now actually, before I get into the evidence part, I'm just gonna genuinely explain what we're seeing right now, because honestly, it is insane how strong these high-end level sorcerers are, and it actually gives us a great idea of how strong full-powered Gojo is as well. Yorozu right now is far stronger than Yuki, Yuta, Maki, or even Yuji right now. And I'm not exaggerating with the title or thumbnail that I've put. I've probably said she's stronger than Yuta. Unironically, that's true right now. So just to quickly break it down, this was a theory from the Eternal Flame and me, where basically we theorized that since Yorozu has Mai's curse technique, she's actually a descendant of the Zenin clan. Now actually, when the spoilers dropped on Wednesday, we were one of the only people who actually said this or even theorized about this, and there was a lot of backlash. But now that we have other translations, so there's two versions, it's actually looking to be true because it's confirmed to be Mai's curse technique. Obviously, this is just incredible because now we're actually seeing what a fully realized version of Mai would look like. So of course, Mai was limited by obviously being a twin, so her and Maki are treated as one. So because of that, the heavenly restriction that Maki had, all of that heavenly restriction was also applied to Mai. So whatever innate potential or cursed energy Mai had was almost entirely suppressed because Maki was alive. So of course, you see that the same power Maki had, Mai would actually get a similar level of a power had Maki died, because the heavenly restriction and that heavy binding vow would no longer be applying to her. Now of course, you can say she wouldn't be as strong as Maki because she hasn't trained as much, so she would be granted a large amount of cursed energy, but she would need more training to get used to it. But still, what we're seeing right now is honestly not just an awakened Mai, but this is an awakened Mai. Imagine she had lived in the strongest Jujutsu era. And not only that, it's actually very possible, and I haven't seen anyone talk about this, that Yorozu is just like Sukuna and isn't human, or at the very least an evolved human, because that's what I believe Sukuna is. Because actually, when Yorozu says to Sukuna, can't you change your form to look like how you used to back then, or can you not just change your form because you have that much control? Sukuna actually says, shouldn't I be saying the same about you? And Yorozu actually confirms that she too can transform herself like Sukuna did, and is pretty much directly implying that this isn't even her true form, this isn't what her true body would look like. So in the same way that we have Tengen and Sukuna with these weird bodies, Yorozu actually very likely has something incredible, which would actually explain why she's so powerful, which again I will get into. It would actually explain that if she's sacrificed her humanity, or she's gone past that limits of what humans can do. So obviously we saw when Uro was talking to Yuta, she said, you'll never be able to become the strongest because you're just human, you're not willing to cross that line and selfishly transcend others. I do think Yorozu's done this, and it does go in line of her personality. You know, she's absolutely insane, she's batshit crazy, let's just not even be around the bush, which seems to be in line with all of the high-end era sorcerers we have. Urume being just a massive simp and also is a cook who cooks humans, Sukuna who is a cannibal, Uro who is a streaker, granted that's probably least crazy of all of them, which is crazy to say, and of course Yorozu, which we're seeing right now, like some actual schizo stuff we're seeing from Yorozu. So I just wanted to actually set those ground rules, so that's her curse technique, and just giving us an idea of why she's so strong before I actually get into how strong she actually is. Now actually, just to start off with one of the channel members, so that guy Trey, you know, the special grade member, he actually says, with a fully realized construction technique, my early predictions on Yorozu's strength level are that she's probably between Angel and Kenjaku. And obviously, just one thing I want to clarify is that I know this is an early time to be saying how strong she is. I'm actually making this video because again, there is a 2-week break and it's not going to be my final video on Yorozu. So of course, once we see how strong her full powered form is and how she does against Mahoroga, yeah, best believe there's going to be a ton of videos on Yorozu. But actually, I really do agree with that guy Trey in the fact that at least her and Angel are well above Kenjaku. Honest to God, it does seem like Angel, Yorozu, and Sukuna, and of course Gojo, are just genuinely on a completely different tier compared to all the other sorcerers. So let me actually break it down. This is how I see it in my head. In one tier, I have characters like Ryu, Uro, False Base Kashimo, and Urume if Urume has a domain expansion. A tier above that, I have like the special grade. So for example, Yuta, Yuki, and on the top of this would be Kenjaku, who's the strongest of them all. A tier above them, I would have Angel and Yorozu, who just right now are looking genuinely far stronger than any of the other sorcerers we've seen. And then above them, of course, we have the honored ones, so Gojo and Sukuna, who scale well above everyone. But now actually, I want to get into talking about the evidence and feats that she has to explain why I put her so strong, because I know a lot of fans, especially the Yuki, Yuta, Kenjaku fans, are saying, what, how is she so strong? How is she stronger than Yuta? Understandable, to be honest. Like, if you don't power scale that much or you don't realize how big these feats are, so I'll actually get into that now, along with Rigger. So he's also another channel member. He says she's got to be in the top 5. Megumi used Mahoruga as attack every chance he had, but making Sukuna activate is a big feat. Obviously, he isn't using Shrine, but it's still an impressive feat. So this is just one thing I want to clarify. The reason Yorozu is definitively above Yuta right now as a complete fact, by the way, unless GEGE changes this, and I'll give evidence why, maybe Yuta can contest her later, but just definitively the reason she's above Yuta is because of how Sukuna treated Ryu. Now, just to quickly break it down, I've talked about this in many other videos, so if you're curious, I would actually recommend checking out my previous video about Yuji versus Maki. I know it's crazy, but in that video I actually explain why Ryu is stronger than Yuta, at least just physically. I just mean physical aspects. Of course, Yuta with his hacks and Rika is just way stronger than Ryu, but just in terms of physical stats, Ryu is someone who scales directly to Rika. He is 1-to-1 in terms of speed, strength, power, durability, everything. Actually, it's probably more true that Ryu scales a bit above her in terms of physical stats, but just to be fair, let's say they scale the same. And we know for a fact that Rika scales above Yuta in terms of physical stats. And of course, we know that Ryu scales well above Yuta, so not including their final clash when Ryu was on Death's Door and had no cursed energy, versus Yuta, who had all of his cursed energy replenished by Rika and is at full HP, which is crazy to think that even that version of near-death Ryu was on par with Yuta at that time. But of course, as we saw in the beginning of the fight, when they actually went hand-to-hand, Ryu just completely dominated him. Of course, this is a false-based Yuta without his curse technique, but you get the point, right? I'm not going to harp on this point any longer than I have. The fact that Ryu, again, someone scaling directly to Rika, got true blitzed by Sukuna is just madness. And people don't realize how impressive this is. So I just want to clarify for people who don't actually know. First of all, Ryu was the one who approached Sukuna to begin with, and not only was he the one who approached Sukuna, actually if you look very carefully at the panels, he's the one who attacks first. Sukuna even gives him a chance to run away, saying, can you just move? You can scram while you're blocking my path. If you look carefully, the hand that attacks first, that raises, is Ryu's because it has the fluff of his coat. But even though he attacked first, Sukuna instantly counterattacks before Ryu has even realized what happened. And then obviously Ryu backs away. Sukuna, now going serious, he true blitzes Ryu. And I just want to clarify for people who don't understand how crazy this is if you don't power scale, this is a pure perception blitz. This isn't a regular speed blitz where you're still somewhat aware that you've been blitzed. So for example, we've seen characters many times in other series and mainly JJK where yes, they're blitzed by characters faster, but at the very least they can still react, or just at the last second they're aware. Ryu's case, it's a perception blitz. He hasn't even realized he's been blitzed. Now here's the crazy thing, Sukuna's movement speed, now keep in mind there's 3 forms of speed. There's travel speed, combat/attack speed, and reaction speed. Reaction speed is something that's always well above travel speed. It's more relative to combat speed, but it's the fact that Sukuna's combat speed blitzed Ryu's reaction speed, because again, when you look at the panel with Ryu, he hasn't realized he's been blitzed or cut. Like his eyes are wide, like the information hasn't even gone to his mind that Sukuna's behind him or Sukuna's moved or that he's been cut when Sukuna's already taken his back. Again, this feat is incredible, and this just in terms of physical stats puts Sukuna well, and I mean well above Rika. And of course, Rika is stronger than Yuta. And I'm not saying Yuta stands no chance against 15-fingered Sukuna. I do have some Yuta hype. I'll talk about that later when I get into the Yuta section. But yeah, it's just looking disgusting on how powerful 15-fingered Sukuna is. And again, even when he was just not even taking it seriously, or you know what, let's be fair, when he was just going at a normal level, he still blitzed Ryu with the first cut. And it's not just about how fast Cleaving Dismantle is, it's about how fast Sukuna is, because Ryu tried to attack first, and Sukuna had countered. He had already countered and reacted before Ryu had even realized what happened. Like before he even raised his hand, he's already cut. It's incredible, the speed difference between 15-fingered Sukuna and the rest of the cast. Now, why does this scale to Yorozu? Well, I'm sure some of you have already realized, but in case you haven't, Yorozu right now, she's not just doing okay against 15-fingered Sukuna, she's completely on par. And I just want to remind you that Sukuna, where he was at less than 10%, which people are confused by, again, if you want to get a good idea of the whole Sukuna thing, check out the last video. I'm not going to get into that now, but just to summarize, this Sukuna is someone who's at worst a lot less than 10%, or at best 15-20%, is someone who is easily 1v2ing Maki and Yuji with ease and without any techniques, mind you, and he didn't even get damaged. Now imagine this full-powered version of this Sukuna, right? Full-powered 15 fingers. And actually makes a lot of sense that we realize less than 10%, or let's say like 10-15% of Sukuna scales above Maki and Yuji physically. It does make a lot of sense when you think the full power of this 15 fingers can now like insta-blitz characters like Ryu, who keeps up with Rika. It actually does fit really nicely, actually surprisingly, but I got a little sidetracked. Let me actually get back to Yorozu. Yorozu is keeping up with Sukuna, again, extreme ease. This is 100% Sukuna, and she's going hand-to-hand insanely well when they clash with the fist. She tanks a kick to the gut like it's nothing. Genuinely, no blood coughing, nothing. You can see the kick on her stomach, and what she does in retaliation, sticks her tongue out and goes bleh. Actually mocking the king of curses like a child. It's incredible. And just one quick thing I want to say, there are two arguments people are using to cope with Yorozu somehow not getting insta-blitzed by Sukuna, and people are coping really hard. It's mostly all of the fans of, say, Yuki, Kenjaku, Yuta, all Maki, all those fans are the ones coping. And of course, you know, I'm a really big Yuki and Yuta fan, especially Yuta. Like, I do think he's really strong, but I gotta keep it real. Like, even my favorite character, Kashimo, would get insta-blitzed one shot by Sukuna if he doesn't use his curse technique. With his curse technique, he's doing bits on Sukuna, right? He's doing major damage. To downplay the first argument, so in case you don't know what that is, the first argument is that Sukuna isn't going all out, or he's just being very lazy, or he's toying with her. The reason we know for a fact that this isn't the case is Sukuna, from the get-go, we've heard him say, you're not surviving this fight. That's first thing. Second of all, we know Sukuna doesn't want to be. Every interaction we've seen with him so far, he really wants to get rid of Yorozu. He wants to be done with this as soon as possible. He wants to kill her, not using Shrine as curse technique, and just get rid of her as fast as possible. And not only that, he's honest to God fed up with every interaction he's had with her. The second point being, even if you want to cope and say he's not going 100% serious, he's even at the default level of his full powers at 15 fingers, so the default level where he even blitzed Ryu in the first attack with the first strike, even that is insanely impressive. But again, I don't even think it's that. I do think Sukuna going serious, like he's not holding back. Yes, I'm not saying he's stressing or he's sweating, but he's definitely not playing around with Yorozu. He wants to kill her. The second thing I've seen people say, and again, this actually goes back to what Trigger actually said initially, is that it's still a big feat even though he's not using his curse technique Shrine, which includes the flames, which we now know, and of course cleaving this man. And again, I just want to clarify, okay, let's say this Sukuna is at like 10 or 15%. Again, Sukuna himself says he was at less than 10% at times against Maki and Yuji, but this Sukuna, again, just to be nice, 15%. No curse technique, just physical stats, is easily manhandling Maki and Yuji in a 2v1. Now we're saying that this Sukuna has 100% of his physical stat, and he has one of the strongest techniques in all of Jujutsu Kaisen history. The 10 Shadows technique is a technique that rivals the 6 Eyes in Limitless. Yes, I get Sukuna's not as fully maxed, he's not using his own technique, but the fact that he's at his full physical stats with no nerfs, and he still has one of the strongest curse techniques, the 10 Shadows, at his disposal. Like, this is incredible, the fact that she's easily keeping up and actually doing evenly with this Sukuna. And keep in mind, we also know that she was playing around the entire start of the fight, and I will get into that later, but she also wasn't going serious. Now, just to get into what Negli, another long-time channel member, says, if she used the idea of evolution in tandem with a construction curse technique, she could basically be a sorcerer equivalent to Mahoroga, just to keep evolving and rendering enemy curse techniques powerless. And he even thinks that she will defeat Mahoroga and force Sukuna to use his curse technique. And again, I just want you to realize how insane all of this is. And even Blaziken actually, so his new review, he actually even said that he thinks Yorozu is going to destroy Mahoroga. Think about this. This is a Mahoroga amped by Sukuna. We already saw how strong Nue went just by being summoned by Sukuna. Like, this version of Nue that Sukuna summoned is dozens, and I mean dozens and dozens of times far more powerful than the ones Megami summoned. And that is an understatement as well. And considering the fact that now, and considering Mahoroga is about to get the same amp, and keep in mind, this is a Mahoroga who's stronger than Jogo, and people actually think Yorozu is going to beat this Mahoroga, it's impressive, because again, I think the same thing. I actually think it's going to be pretty even. I do think Yorozu is going to have an advantage, but it's incredible. And just to get back into the curse technique, again, this curse technique is godly. She can create anything. She can control what she creates. It's honestly just ridiculous how powerful this curse technique is. She has a curse technique, I'm not even kidding, which is rivaling the 10 Shadows technique right now. It really puts into perspective that Mai has the same curse technique. Had the heavenly restriction of Maki not been restricting her, because again, in Jujutsu Kaisen, twins are being treated as two, Mai had the same potential as Megami. Like, it's honestly crazy. Now, of course, Mai would need to train. After she unlocks her awakening, she would need to train a lot and go through fights to evolve more, but it's just incredible. Honestly, this curse technique is insane. And again, Yorozu is keeping up with Sukuna physically with ease. And just to get back into what I was saying before, she herself has been playing around the entire start of the fight. And I want to say playing around very lightly. Like, to be honest, what I mean to say is she's not going all out. I should clarify, I'm not saying she's toying with Sukuna, by no means. Like, she's going serious, but she's just holding back a lot. Obviously, we see with her, she's like fantasizing mid-battle, daydreaming and going crazy, mocking him by making these childish faces and all that stuff. And what's even crazy is that she's easily dealing with Sukuna with his 10 Shadows. I mean, Sukuna summons the Divine Dogs, and she's casually dealing it with the base of her technique. So she's not even using her technique seriously, she's just using the black liquids which are around her. And we actually get to see Sukuna's reaction to when she goes all out. Now, the thing is, I don't think Sukuna would use Mahoruga for no reason. I do think if he could have finished her with the 10 shadows with the normal Shikigami, he would have. But Sukuna sees this version, or this transformation I should say, of Yorozu, because again, in Yorozu's own words, she gets very upset that Sukuna's not using Shrine. She doesn't know what the reason is, so she just takes it to be Sukuna's mocking it. So in response and in retaliation, she uses her full power. And Sukuna's immediate response to this isn't, oh, I should try the Shikigami or I should do anything else. It's instantly, yeah, this is actually a perfect time to try out Mahoruga. And I don't want to say he's being backed into a corner, but I think it's more so Sukuna's evaluation of the technique, because again, important to clarify, Angel, Uraume, Sukuna, and Yorozu all know each other, and they all know how each other's curse techniques work. I mean, even Sukuna, if you remember, was actually well aware of Angel's curse technique even before he had seen it, and that's why he tells Yuji not to spill the beans. And of course, Yorozu says, why don't you use your shrine? So Yorozu's seen the technique firsthand of full-powered Sukuna, and in turn, Sukuna's well aware of this transformation of this form of Yorozu. So again, the fact that Sukuna thinks, yeah, I need to actually summon Mahoruga, I don't want to say Sukuna can't win. Actually, I might actually be saying, I do think that just 15 fingers at full power, and with the base 10 shadows, so without Mahoruga, and of course without Shrine, that's just not being included, that version of Sukuna might actually be weaker than this transformed state of Yorozu. Again, just want to clarify, without his curse technique and without Mahoruga. Now, that isn't confirmed, that's just what I think, so you don't actually have to agree with that, but I'm just saying the fact that it's possible and looking to be even very possible, it's just insane to think. Because again, remember, this version of Sukuna, Insta-Blitz Ryushigori, has the same one-to-one stats of Rika in terms of speed, strength, power, durability, and it's not about him having cleave, it's the fact that he had taken his damn back before Ryu's mind had even processed that Sukuna had moved. He had gone behind him. It's incredible, the fact that his combat speed and even miniature travel speed is that much faster than Ryu's reaction speed, and in turn, of course, Yuta and Rika's reaction speed. And now I do want to talk about Yuta for a bit. I've given a lot of hardcore evidence on why Yuta or Rika does not scale at all to Yorozu, and keep in mind, I'm just referring to base Yorozu. I'm not even referring to this transformed beast of an insect creature. It fits her name, Yorozu, 10,000. I'm not even referring to that. I'm just referring to base Yorozu. She would insta-blitz Yuta and Rika, and actually with her base physical strength, she should be able to honestly just probably knock either of them out. It's just crazy. That's what I mean when I said in the intro, the scaling of Jujutsu Kaisen has just been broken. Like, it's on, the power system has just gone off the roof. And I do want to give some at least points to Yuta, some possibilities on why he might be able to contest with 15 fingers or Yorozu, which again, if he does, that would mean that Yuta would need to be several times stronger than Maki and Ryui Shigori and Uro and Rika, which maybe it's possible. But okay, the 3 points I have to defend Yuta. Number one, it's possible that he's copied the 6 eyes and Limitless, but more likely just the Limitless. A lot of people think he can't copy the 6 eyes because it's something that's genetic more so than a curse technique, which I just want to argue that when he uses Inumaki's snake eyes and fangs, he gets the genetic tattoos on his mouth, and also it's something that's inside of your throat as well. So I just want to say, like, the fact that he gets the genetic abilities of the Inumaki clan, which again is one-to-one of the Gojo clan, because just like how you can't turn off the 6 eyes, which is why Gojo wears the blindfold, you can't actually turn off the tattoos on your mouth or the ability in your throat. You can't turn that off, which is why Inumaki unfortunately has to speak in this odd language. But nonetheless, even though there seems to be odd evidence that he can copy the 6 eyes along with the Limitless, I've seen a lot of people push back on that and say maybe he can just copy the Limitless. Even if you think that's the case, in those 5 minutes where he can use curse techniques and he would have the Limitless, he would have Rika to provide him with boundless cursed energy, so he would be able to use the Limitless, well, I guess limitlessly without running out of cursed energy, so there's that. But of course, you could argue that he needs the 6 eyes to use the Limitless to this infinite capabilities, because that's what the 6 eyes does. Regardless, I just wanted to throw that there as a possibility, because again, before Gojo actually got sealed, he did meet with Yuta, and he did say something was going to happen, so it's possible maybe he would have given him his curse technique, whatever the conditions. Like, if you need blood, easy, Gojo could have just cut his hand or something, given him some blood, and healed a reverse curse technique. Whatever the conditions are, could have happened very easily. The second point is, maybe he's just going to give Yuta some major plot power, which, I mean, it's not out of the possibilities, because again, Yuta's very, very new to Jujutsu. Sorcery, like, he's only been a sorcerer for what, like a year and a couple months, I'd say? Like a year and a half? It's not even been more than 2 years. He's still relatively fresh and new. So it is possible that he will have some sort of awakening or power up. So to put him on the level of Yorozu Angel and 15 fingers, it's possible. Don't want to say it's not. And the third possibility is, and I pray that this is not the possibility out of all the options, it's that he's basically going to have major plot armor and he's going to be stronger than he was portrayed in the past. The reason I don't want this to be the case is because it would just be a massive, massive plot hole and a huge writing inconsistency, which is something GEGE has, honestly, besides JJK 0, which is understandable since that's a one-shot, has never done, or I think has very, very, very rarely done. But I mean, this would be a massive inconsistency in terms of writing on a massive level. So if Yuta, for no explainable reason, is able to just match Yorozu and Sukuna in terms of speed and strength, even Rika, it just wouldn't make sense of what we've seen. I'm not going to say it's impossible because I've seen other shonen authors do this, where it's like, yeah, screw scaling, who cares about having things be consistent in terms of how strong characters are, we can just make Yuta even stronger just for the sake of the plot, which would really suck. And I do hope GEGE doesn't take that path that most other shonen authors have. But again, there are the first two possibilities where he gets a power, which would be great, honestly, I really love that one. Or maybe he uses the copied limitless, or the copied 6 eyes limitless, so maybe that as well. Yeah, if he does have that, imagine Yuta being pretty much Gojo level for 5 minutes, and then he also has Rika too. My god, that would be incredible. And now actually, just to get into Seven Sins' last point here, he actually thinks Angel versus Yorozu would be a good matchup, and he actually thinks Yorozu will be above the majority of the cast if she's making Sukuna pull out Mahoroga. He actually says Yorozu might be stronger than Kenjaku, which I think she's a lot stronger than Kenjaku, like way stronger, but I do know a lot of people really hype up Kenjaku's power to be super strong. So I mean, fair enough, because yeah, people say he would like mid-diff Yuki or Yuta in a 1v1, or like low-diff Maki. So if you're someone who thinks Kenjaku is super powerful, not me, but if you think that, fair enough. Angel versus Yorozu would be a crazy match, because again, I just want to remind people, for people who downplay Angel, the one technique that we've seen of Angels, and keep in mind, this isn't even true form Angel, this is just Angel letting Hana borrow her technique. It covers the entire city in a massive light made of cursed energy, and it's just so huge, and then obviously it summons a massive light beam. This is the only attack we've seen, and it's city level. Angel is no joke, and I do think Angel and Yorozu, I honestly think they're pretty close. And of course, Camden Moore, he says she's relatively weaker than Naoya, but he would catch her lacking while in the middle of a simp tendency. So of course, Camden Moore, yeah, he's just trolling. He's a big Naoya fan and he's a big troll. So if you're a Jujutsu Kaisen fan and you haven't subscribed already, trust me, you're definitely going to want to. There's just a ton of JJK videos, power scaling, what if, live streams, a lot of live streams on the channel. So hey, do so. And of course, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like. It really does help out, so thank you very much if you do. And let me know where you scale Yorozu. I know this is a pretty interesting topic, and again, I know this is very early to make this video. Just to clarify, as I said in the beginning, this is not the final Yorozu video. This is more of kind of like a buffer, because we have a 2-week break before the next chapter, just to discuss how strong she is. And of course, once we get more of Yorozu, best believe I'm going to be having Yorozu versus Yuta, or Yorozu versus Yuki matchups. Like, best believe that's going to happen, and maybe full-fledged video on how strong she is once we see everything. But let me know what you agree and disagree with, because again, there's a lot of concrete evidence that we've seen, but you never know of Jujutsu Kaisen, right? And of course, thank you to all of the channel members. You're seeing your names on the screen right now. You guys are legends. You really do help out a lot, so thank you very much. And if you've watched this far, of course, you are a member of the Higuruma fan club. That's everything. Take care and bye.